As a small business owner, you deserve more. More confidence, more connectivity, more of the tools that help your business thrive. And at Cox Business, you can expect more from us. We don't just have sales reps. We have perfect plan identifiers, people who will work with you to make sure your business gets everything it needs and nothing that it doesn't. Your business deserves more, and that's why you can expect more from Cox Business. Call 800-526-8572 to switch today.
I'll say this for him, he's consistent.
Well, he's been so consistent all year.
Not the taste, consistency.
Consistently, yes.
Consistency!
Thanks, losers.
There are no losers here. There's only consistent fantasy gods. And by that, I talk about myself, of course. And, of course, Ron Rigney. Ron, how's it going, man?
Winners. We want winners.
We want winners. We are winners.
We want winners.
Doing well in the Kings Classic so far. Me, you, and Colby are doing pretty well. So that's always good sign to get started off on the right foot. Lots of good stuff going on. I know the baseball playoffs are coming in, but the fantasy playoffs, you made it to the finals. My offense failed me miserably and batted 186 for the week. So I didn't make it to the finals to play you, but hopefully you'll keep our tradition of big guy fantasy sports guys winning the title. This will be what? We won 3 years in a row, right?
This will be 3 in a row. And I'm sad to say, up to this point in the week, whatever failed PEDs you guys were on last week as far as offense, my guys have taken those this week because I've been lights out for the last 5 weeks probably. And, of course, this week is the week we decide to just kind of sit back and relax. So we'll see. I'm not completely out in all categories. I could still do it. I think I'm down 3-5. My pitching is still dominant. That's kind of carried me. But, man, my offense was lights out. But now, I don't know. We'll see. So either way, second place, we'll take it, I guess. But we want to bring home that big freaking trophy.
we want to get we went to three-peat. We went to three-peat of the couch tomatoes. So good luck with that. All right. Of course, as always, we are here as part of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Definitely go check that out. Lots of great podcasts, including, of course, the Consistently Cashing and the Prop It Like It's Hot podcast that we've been putting out every Saturday and doing pretty well in that as well. So this week, pretty decent week, some unique guys sneaking in there with some clutch games, some unique guys that are not getting in with clutch games. We're going to talk about that as we break down positions. But the big news coming out today is that Melvin Gordon decided that, maybe Austin Eckler is better than we thought. Maybe the Chargers don't need me. Maybe I better get my ass back to camp, back to the team. And so he says he's ready to go, ready to play, because he knows that he's going to be a free agent this year, and he better go out there and prove his worth, because the Chargers ain't going to re-sign him because they know they can win without him. And they're probably going to run him into the ground and until, somebody. But who knows? Maybe they'll trade him midseason. If somebody makes an offer they can't refuse, maybe somebody makes a run for the playoffs and could use, a Melvin Gordon for not only the rest of this year, the future. Could happen, but, stranger things have happened in the past. So we'll see how it goes there. Any thoughts on Melvin Gordon, then how that affects Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson?
Well, I think it affects Justin Jackson, obviously, way more than it does Eckler. I think Eckler, we were kind of talking about this off air, and, I agree with what you said 100%. I think Eckler is still going to be a useful flex play. I think he's going to be involved enough that, you're still going to get a handful of points out of him every week. And, at this point, too, if you're looking at the waiver wire in your leagues, there's nothing out there anyway that you're going to get that I think is going to be better in most of your flex spots than Austin Eckler anyway. But Justin Jackson, I think it hurts definitely the most.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I think Eckler, he's proven he's had some decent consistency in the past when they used him a little bit more, kind of not shared carries with Gordon, but certainly used him a little bit more on third down. And it wouldn't surprise me if they used them in a lot of two-back sets or split out Eckler. Let's be honest, what does the Chargers have outside of basically Keenan Allen? Hunter Henry's out They've got, Dontrell Williams, Dontrell Inman, Mike Williams, who looks like he could be injured, and we'll see how his status is. So my thought is Eckler would probably see just as many, percent of snaps as maybe Gordon if they don't, if they need some help in the pass game, which the Chargers, seem to do quite a bit. So I really, we talked about, would you trade Eckler away, at this point? And I think he'll continue. He may not put up 20-some points a week like he has been, but I still think he'll be very consistent, easily get, that 12 to 15 every week, with possibly, getting a touchdown or so in the game as well. So I think both Gordon and Eckler owners out there should be pleased with the scenario going down. I grabbed Gordon in a ton of leagues in my late drafts, like probably in the second half of August when I did those, a lot of local league drafts, that kind of stuff. I grabbed him. I think I remember telling you that in my auction touchdown-only league, I drafted Melvin Gordon for like $22, which is about a third of what most top backs go for in our league. And nobody else bid me up. And, I think everybody kind of went, oh, crap, after they saw it, after it went going, gone. So, and here's the thing. I'm 3-0 in that league. My starters are Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, Sonny Michel / Kerryon Johnson, or who's my other back? Jordan Howard. So those, basically Ingram's always in there. And then I kind of rotate between the best matchups. And I've got Gordon on my bench. Now, there's no flex in this thing, so Gordon will, probably, become my starter again, depending if he looks good and looks healthy. But and then I have Julio Jones, Travis Kelce, and Demarcus Robinson as my wide receivers. Needless to say, I'm kicking ass.
I was going to say, you got some good problems to have as far as all that depth.
Yeah,
you have going on.
Yeah, and I, it was interesting because that league, I've always I hate to say it, it's my local league that I've been in since 1985, but I really never paid much attention to it because I was always trying to, my goal was, I got to beat the big boys. I've got to beat the Mike Clays and the Brad Evans and, and I wouldn't care about that. And but last year I decided I was going to start making some trades and start building a core of running backs that I could interchange at good prices. I grabbed Lamar Jackson last year at the end of the year, knowing that rushing touchdowns get 6, passing only get 3. And, just got some cheap guys. And same way with the draft this year. Went in looking for certain players at certain values and got them. And, so right now I'm 3-0, and I beat the team that is actually had actually scored more points than me this year in the first 2 games. He scored 51 in the first week. He has Mahomes. I can't remember all the studs he has, but him and I battered it out this week, and it was 39-36. A typical week is about 20 points. 24 points should win you a week. We went 39-36, and I beat him. So yeah, scoring fest for that. So, all right, well, let's get started here. For those of you new to the podcast, in the consistency world, if you're not a member of Big Guy Fantasy Sports VIP or even any access, what we are using right now when we're talking about year-to-date consistency numbers, we're pulling right out of the Clutch Report off the Big Guy Fantasy Sports site. For those who don't know what that is, you can go in there, put in your own scoring method, and it will tell you the consistency of the players through the first 3 weeks, all of 2018, whatever you want to go back and look at. You can download that report once you set it and run it, and you can put it into an Excel file and, play around with it from there. So we're going to look at the quarterbacks. No surprise, top of the list, number 1, Patrick Mahomes, 3 for 3 consistency, 99.8, almost 100 points in the first 3 games. I don't think anybody's surprised by this. What everybody is surprised by is the next 2 guys who are only 5 points behind Patrick Mahomes in total points, and that is Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson. Maybe Lamar Jackson a little bit, even though I don't think really any of us thought that he was going to have quite the arm or quite the passing prowess that he's had. We expected him to rush for 125 yards a game and throw for 125, kind of the old Mike Vick scenario, throw for 150, 175, have 300 yards, a couple touchdowns, rush one in, and be a fantasy relevant player. But he's been a lot more than that, and I was watching some of the game tape this week on Game Pass, and I was pretty impressed with Lamar Jackson. He has a nice touch on his throws. Obviously, somebody has worked with him in the offseason. Made a few mistakes. Some quick decisions that didn't go well, but didn't turn out all that badly either. This week he gets to play the Browns. Browns have not been doing well defensively because they haven't been doing good offensively. So we'll see what the Browns' answer is to Lamar Jackson. My thought is you got to put some kind of linebacker there that basically follows him wherever he goes. But then you also have to stop Mark Ingram, Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews. A lot of marks to stop on that team. So your thoughts on Dak and Lamar? Do both of these guys continue with this success? Well, will one or both of these guys kind of start losing some of that consistency down the stretch?
Well, I'm with you on Lamar Jackson, but the only thing I will say is he has had some pretty favorable matchups the first week, including Miami and Arizona. So, but still, you can't the touch he has on the ball. That's not going to really matter what team he's playing. I mean, I'm with you on that. He's definitely worked on it in the offseason. And I couldn't be more surprised that these two guys are near the top as far as total points and 100% consistent, especially Dak. I don't think that a lot of people saw that coming, especially with they have Amari Cooper and Zeke Elliott, but they don't have when you look at it on paper, it just doesn't seem like they have a ton left behind those guys. I know they added Randall Cobb. I know Jason Witten came back from the rocking chair and he scored a few touchdowns here and there. Devin Smith has come on, a guy out of nowhere that was kind of left for dead as far as being, majorly injured. So he does have a complement of some solid weapons around him, but I think, once again, he's kind of the one getting it done, just like Lamar Jackson. You can tell he's definitely worked on some things in the offseason.
Yeah, definitely. So some scary situation here on television right now. Don't know if you got it on. Jamal Williams was running the ball, was being held up on a run play, and he got helmet-to-helmet hit, I think, by Barnett from Philadelphia. He is now strapped on a stretcher, and they're rolling him out the field. So let's hope that he's okay. But, yeah, scary thing. He just dropped when he got hit. So, but he's got his hand up and a thumbs up, so that's a good thing. So let's our prayers for Jamal Williams and the Packers there. So going back to the quarterbacks, there's only 5 quarterbacks that have played all 3 games that are perfectly consistent. We've talked about 3. The other 2, Matt Ryan, probably not a big surprise. Tom Brady, more of a surprise, but just like Lamar and Dak, he's played Miami in 1 game. He's played, some other bad teams as well. I still feel like over time, he's going to kind of go back to where he was last year, more of a game manager, throw the ball when he needs to. The run game kind of kicked it up for the Dolphins against the Dolphins, but on the other hand, they also were missing James White, and then Burkhead got hurt. So I don't know. We may need Tom Brady to keep throwing the ball if every running back on this team can't stay healthy. What are your thoughts on Brady and Matt Ryan going forward?
Well, and I think Bill Belichick's fine with that. I mean, we've seen them in the past. They get up big on a team, and you think they're going to take their foot off the gas and start handing it off, and it's just this dink and dunk passing game. And I don't think necessarily it is the Patriots, so you got to think they might want to run out the score a little bit depending on who it is. But I think they do that just to kind of replace the running game sometimes. So I'm fine with Brady going forward. I think he was a great value in drafts. I mean, he's getting up there in age, but he's still getting it done. I mean, the 100% clutch rating is evidence there. And Matt Ryan's a guy that, I think we went with him as one of our picks and consistently cashed in last week. The complement of weapons he has. Austin Hooper has had a great season so far. I'm sure we'll talk about him. We talk about tight ends, but he's got the weapons at wide receiver. He's got the tight end there that's solid. And, he doesn't get enough credit for being just a solid stand in there pocket passer. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves for that.
Well, one of the passers we're going to talk about next is Aaron Rodgers, who's 0 for 3 in clutch games. He is 22nd in total fantasy points. However, he just threw about a 70-yard bomb to Devontae Adams, who got tackled about the 5. So I'm assuming that those numbers will improve this week, as we already seen. him and Baker Mayfield, they're both 0-3. They're both around. Mayfield is right behind Aaron Rodgers. But I feel like it's two completely different situations for those guys. What are your thoughts on those two? My thought is that Rodgers and the Packers are 3-0. They're winning games on defense and running the football. So you can't complain. You can't go, well, we need to change things up because we're not winning. So, I don't know if things will change too much other than the fact, however, is that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have played against some very bad defenses or very bad offenses that they didn't have to throw the ball a lot. Now, tonight's game, of course, they're playing the Eagles. You expect this to be more of a shootout. I kind of feel like Aaron Rodgers will go back to Aaron Rodgers. Baker Mayfield looks lost. I was at the first game live. I've watched the Rams game the other night. I know that the offensive line is bad, but it can't be that bad that he's making bad decisions. I know the play calling is questionable. What are your thoughts on these two guys, and will things change for the better for both of them?
I think Aaron Rodgers, it will. I think that he's going to kind of get into a rhythm, and I think that it's going to be a case where I think the defense is going to be good for a while, but I think it's going to kind of get to a point where they're going to have to rely on him a little bit more. I mean, he is one of the top guys as far as name value, and he's been one of the top guys doing it at that position for the last 8-10 years, whatever it is. So I'm not so worried about him. I don't have him a lot of places. I have him in a couple 2 quarterback leagues, which I'm not too concerned there. But Baker Mayfield, I haven't got to watch a lot of film on him, and I'm kind of glad for that just because of the performance that he's had. And you said you were there week 1. He's got too many weapons to be failing the way he's failing. I'm not really sure what that is. And it's funny because I play in a couple of more shallower leagues, and it seems like I have people asking me every week, is he droppable yet? And I think in shallow leagues, if you've got a guy a quarterback on the waiver wire that's got a better matchup, I think he's definitely droppable in shallow leagues. If you want to add a Phillip Rivers or one of the like Matt Ryan if he's still out there, or Tom Brady, somebody like that, I think you definitely get rid of Baker Mayfield and just play matchups.
Yeah,
Con-stream,
I mean, definitely
if you will.
Yeah, definitely con-stream. And like you said, right now the game of this week he's playing in Baltimore, and that is never a fun time for any Browns players. So yeah, I'd be a little worried about that. Definitely agree with you there. All right, so let's move on to the running backs. At the top of the list, 78.8 points. But the guy we talked about, Austin Eckler. I mean, again, I expected Austin Eckler to have a decent, year, especially knowing that Gordon wasn't going to be around for a while. But I did not expect him to be, at this spot, number 1 overall, 3 for 3 in consistency, ahead of Zeke and Barkley and all the studs. Like you said, we'll see what happens now with Gordon in place. I assume that'll start coming down. Whether the consistency drops off, I don't know about that. But other guys who are perfectly consistent after playing 3 games at running back, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Le'Veon Bell, which is actually quite surprising. And the biggest surprise to me is Philip Lindsay. I felt like he fell off the face of the earth in the preseason. We didn't even know what he was going to do. He was being drafted, I think, outside the top 24. He's 3 for 3. He's 8th in total points. He's ahead of Zeke, who's got he's actually 1 whole point ahead of Zeke. Nick Chubb is 3 for 3, and Leonard Fournette, who has been very quiet, doing his job, not putting up a ton of points. He's averaging about 12, 13 a week, but he's 3 for 3 in consistency. Of those guys, which surprised you the most, and which ones do you feel like are going to, I mean, not obviously Zeke and company, but which of those guys do you think may kind of stay up there or may fall off the face of the earth after a few more games? Ron? I lost Ron.
Wait, here we go.
Oh.
Okay. Not sure what happened there. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I think that Austin Eckler's obviously going to fall off a little bit, but I think he'll still kind of be right on that cusp, and I don't think he's going to stay perfect, obviously, but I think he'll be very close to being perfect. As far as the guys that I think are going to drop off, honestly, I don't see a huge drop-off with a lot of them. I'd say the one I'm probably the most concerned about would be Le'Veon Bell, just because of what the cost was for him. And I know that, a lot of people were kind of down on him, but still paying that late first and even sometimes early second round value for him. That offense as a whole, especially when they're down to their third string guy, really concerns me. I know he's still going to get chances, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to contribute to, or that's going to lead to consistency and lead to a bunch of fantasy points. Probably the most surprising one, I'm going to go with you on Phillip Lindsay. And Phillip Lindsay's a guy that I got in a couple places. I had a couple buddies that, were doing drafts, and they asked me about him, and I told them to take him. But it was more of a flex role. So you definitely want that there as far as consistency in your flex. And he's been a nice little addition there because he wasn't ultra expensive when we were doing drafts in the preseason. But he's probably the most surprising one, especially with a little bit of the buzz that Royce Freeman got heading into the season as well. But I think that job is definitely Phillip Lindsay's. Yeah,
that's for sure. So as we move down the list, look at some of the studs, McCaffrey and Kamara kind of like both took a crap in week 2, bounced back nicely in week 3. So they're right up there as expected and ranked 3rd and 4th in fantasy points. 5th in fantasy points is Mark Ingram. All of these guys are, of course, 67% consistent. Barkley, obviously a buzzkill, was doing fine. But, I think the interesting thing is that all of the guys that we kind of had in that bunch of RB2 wait, grab wide receivers early and then get your RB2s later, seem to be doing pretty well. Guys like Mark Ingram, Marlon Mack, Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Kerryon Johnson, David Montgomery, Damian Williams. Well, Damian Williams 1 to 2 because he missed a game. So, of all those guys, you gotta love the fact that they're kind of holding their own. Like I said, there's really not any, I'll say, guys that are having terrible seasons that you picked highly. Maybe we could go with Devontae Freeman and Joe Mixon, probably are the two, because they're 34th and 35th in total points and have played all 3 weeks. Of those guys, of like Freeman, Mixon, maybe you could even throw Sony Michel in there. Do you see those guys bouncing back and maybe getting back into the flow?
I mean, I think of all the ones that are on there, I think the one I would probably trust the most is Mixon, just because he has the least amount of competition there. But Devontae Freeman's a guy that I've kind of gotten – I kind of got suckered into taking in a few drafts. I was hoping for a bounce back. And I will say, he didn't set the world on fire last week, but he did get it going a little bit against Indianapolis. His yards per carry were up. A little bit of that could be attributed to Darius Leonard being out for the Colts. He was the guy that I thought we did our bold prediction on consistently cash, and he was my guy. I picked him for 125 total and a couple of scores. He didn't score. I think he had somewhere in the 80s and 90s in rushing, which is, I think, twice of what his total was for the first 2 games. But yet again, I haven't seen enough that I fully want to trust him yet. I still feel like Dan Quinn wants to get him the ball. So you could see a little bounce back there. The one that probably scares me the most, though, is Sony Michel. And he's a guy that I took in a couple places. And yeah, I'm a little bit scared with, we once again, we've got to quit getting suckered into this Patriots backfield as far as the share of carries, where it's going to go.
Yeah, and like you said, but interesting enough, this week, James White, I think, is still injured. You also have the scenario where Rex Burkhead may not play, so Sony Michel could get 20 touches this week. So, we got to believe that, they're playing Buffalo, which is, obviously a better defense. I mean, most high schools are better defenses than Miami, but, the Bills are, good, solid defense, but, Patriots are the Patriots, and, they're going to mix it up quite a bit and, definitely do a good job of, maintaining that offense. So we'll see. Like you said, Michel. I like Michel. I really thought he looked so good during the playoffs last year in the Super Bowl. I thought for sure he would be every down 20 touch a game back. But Patriots are the Patriots. So, what do you do? Well,
and real quick, James White's going to be back this week. He was actually out last week just because his wife was having a baby. So he was a late scratch for that. But as far as I can see, he's going to be back in the fold this week.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. All right. So, of all the running backs, before we move on, is there any in there that you're concerned about? I guess my biggest one, and he's 2 for 3. He's 67%. It's not terrible, but Todd Gurley, not doing badly, not doing great. We all kind of knew what we were getting into if you draft him, which we didn't, which of course we know better. Again, what are your thoughts on Todd Gurley? Do you think he's a buy low? Do you think he's a sell high? Do you think he's kind of just where he is, and this is what you are going to expect this year? You're going to get maybe, 2 out of every 3 games are going to be solid, not great, but solid. And, he's right now 26 in total points. He's going to be a low-end RB2. Do you think he can maintain that, or do you think that he'll wear down even more in 3 or 4 weeks? We'll be lucky we see him on the field much.
It's tough to say. I mean, for this point right now, I think I just hang on to him because the problem you run into is I think that people that have him, they have that name value associated with him, where they took him, and I don't know necessarily if he's going to be a guy that you're going to get for a decent price. And as far as dealing him, if you have him, same thing. I don't know if you're going to get offers. I mean, if you get offers that are something that's going to help you out that you think is a fair deal, then I think that's okay. But I'm okay. I think he could definitely be an RB2, and hopefully that's where most people took him. It does give me a little bit of concern as far as, is he going to start kind of wearing down? Like obviously we had a lot of concerns with the knee in the offseason. So I think he could be okay, but I wouldn't expect him to just come on the scene. As long as he's scoring touchdowns as well, as long as he's putting the ball in the end zone, that's obviously going to bump the numbers up a little bit. But if he's not getting those touchdowns, it makes me a little bit leery that he's going to be in that RB2 discussion.
Gotcha. All right, so let's move on to the wide receivers. We have 16 perfect 3-for-3 wide receivers, top of the list, and by almost 20 points over second place is Keenan Allen. He is almost averaging 30 fantasy points a week through his first 3 weeks. It's amazing. I was watching the condensed game tonight while I was walking on the treadmill. And he's just always open. Just always open. Rivers stands back there, and he's got a decent line, so he had some time. He's playing against the Texans. And, he'd throw the pass. I'm like, yep, Keenan caught another one. And, he had a monster week. The only thing that was more monster was Mike Evans, and we'll talk about him in a few minutes. 43.6 fantasy points this week. I think with Gordon come in, I think that's going to help Keenan Allen because, again, I think they'll split out Eckler a little bit more or have him come out of the backfield more to kind of help almost play tight end, where he'll come out of the backfield and kind of take that middle spot. But Keenan Allen is just, like you said, he's a PPR machine. I mean, we obviously love him on the consistency side. He's always up there, 80% plus. This is a great start. I mean, we just hope he stays healthy, obviously. But Keenan Allen is Keenan Allen, and I'm sure he'll have a few games where he'll drop off. He'll play some better defenses, but then again, they get to play Kansas City twice, Oakland twice, Denver twice. Denver might be their only slowdown, if any, but he's looking great. How many shares of Keenan Allen do you got out there?
Actually, quite a few. I mean, he's one of the guys that a couple places I have him as my wide receiver one. A couple places I was lucky enough to go. I went wide receiver early, and I was able to get him as my wide receiver 2 in a couple of places. So, we love him on the podcast. We love him as far as his consistency. And, when you have a guy like Phillip Rivers that targets him all the time, as long as Keenan Allen is healthy, that Phillip Rivers is going to be looking his way. And, through the first 3 games, he's got, 25, 35, 42 targets in 3 games. He had 13 grabs last game, has 8 and 8 the first 2, been over 100 yards twice, 98 yards in week 2. So, I mean, he's getting it done. I mean, if you were lucky enough, because one of my shallow leagues, I was able to start out DeAndre Hopkins and Keenan Allen. So that's my wide receiver 1 and 2. Now, to complement that, I have James Conner and Sony Michel. So I'm glad that I was able to grab those wide receivers when I did.
Right.
But 42 targets through 3 games, you can't argue with the fact that Rivers is going to be looking for him, and for all the reasons you said as well, with Mike Williams being banged up, Hunter Henry banged up, he's going to be getting the ball early and often. And I don't think it's going to matter who the defense is. I think he's still going to put up consistent numbers.
Right. No, he will, and he will. like you said, at some point teams might start double team him, but they've got decent number 2 and number 3 receivers. I mean, Dontrell Inman played there for years, left the team, came back. He knows that offense very well. Mike Williams, if he can stay healthy, certainly helps, with that situation as well, and just keeps defensive honest because he's a good player. He's not a great player, but he's a good player. So definitely there. The rest of the 16, I'll just go down the list. Julio Jones, no surprise. Amari Cooper, a little bit. T.Y. Hilton, not as much. Cooper Kupp, we love Cooper Kupp. He had a huge game last week. First 2 games, just kind of his usual 10-12, but he had a big game against the Browns. Tyler Lockett, definitely one of our favorites. DJ Chark and Terry McLaurin, did not see either one of those coming, but, right now they're certainly putting up some solid numbers. Michael Thomas, no surprise. Larry Fitzgerald, our boy, my boy. Loving the old guy. Loving him on most of my teams. Odell Beckham Jr., Tyrell Williams. Not a surprise after AB left the team. I mean, that's pretty much all they got. Tyler Boyd, no surprise because of A.J. Green not being there. Adam Thielen. It's actually surprising Adam Thielen's there because Kirk Cousins is like second to last in quarterbacks right now. I think he's even worse than Mayfield and Rodgers was, but I didn't even care to talk about him. DJ Moore from Carolina and Juju Smith-Schuster from Pittsburgh. It's interesting. As soon as I saw DJ Moore, I panicked. I'm like, oh, man, wait a minute. Where's my other guy? Well, Curtis Samuel is actually only 8 points behind him in total points, 2 for 3.
2 for 3, I was going to say.
So he's close enough. The whole idea when we were talking about those 2 guys in the offseason was it's not that I didn't like DJ Moore. It's that Curtis Samuel is a very similar player and just as talented and could put up the same numbers, but he was 5 or 6 rounds later. Mm-hmm. Well, you can see it right here. And Samuel actually made a big comeback. He was a little bit farther behind, but when Kyle Allen was in there this week, throwing with a bigger arm, Samuel was doing much better in that game. With a real quarterback with a real arm, unlike Superman. So yeah, I think Samuel is definitely on his way back up. So happy to see that as well. So the top 16. I mean, some of these guys. I mean, like Shark, McLaurin. I don't know. I mean, right now McLaurin is setting the world on fire. Mm-hmm. He's definitely the favorite with Case Keenum. I mean, Washington has a terrible defense. They don't have much on offense. Aging Adrian Peterson. Geis, of course, is gone. I got to believe that maybe these guys – now, Chark I'm not as sold on, but then again, Uncle Rico – Scott definitely loves him as his favorite. I don't know. By the way, did you see on Twitter that the picture with what's his name?
Gardner Minshew II.
Yes, and the actual Uncle Rico guy was on the field. Uncle Rico came to Jacksonville.
Oh no!
Yes,
I didn't see that. Oh
yes.
My gosh,
you got to
awesome.
find that. Okay. Yeah, it's them side by side, and Uncle Rico, the guy that played Uncle Rico, actually has the headband on and everything.
Oh, so
fantastic
good.
Picture. It was right before I got on the line. I forgot to tell you about it. So definitely
awesome.
Find that on Twitter. Anyway, so, of all those guys, I mean, again, it's early. We always have a lot of top 100% consistent guys, this early in the season. This will break down. We'll go down to 12 and 8 and 10. And, it'll keep dropping. The amazing part is there's no Devontae Adams, there's no DeAndre Hopkins, who were both perfectly consistent last year. Hopkins 2 straight years in a row, and now all of a sudden, not as much. But I think it's more still that offensive line and that offense. The teams are starting to kind of definitely key on Hopkins a little bit more. But what are your thoughts on the top 16? Any guys in there that you think keep it up even, I mean, some of those are our pride and joy, so tread lightly.
Well, you kind of talked about my guy before, and I reminded everybody of him a few weeks ago. DJ Chark's a guy that I don't know necessarily if he's going to go 100% the whole season, but I think he can stay up there.
None of these guys probably will.
Love what he's been able to do. He's kind of set himself apart from the rest of those Jacksonville receivers. I do need the help of Big Guy Nation, though, to help me get this thing off the ground. with Terry McLaurin, because I've seen all these tweets out about everybody trying to think of a nickname for Terry McLaurin. I've seen Scary Terry. I've seen F1.
Right.
I've seen Terry Rice, which I like quite a bit.
Why Terry Rice?
Well, Jerry Rice.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
Okay. So I threw mine into the hat. I think mine is the best of the lot, and I need the nation to back me up on this. I think his nickname should be Terry Targets. So
nice.
I threw that out there. I put that out there on Twitter. We got to get this thing off the ground.
All right, Terry Targets.
Terry.
All right.
Okay.
All right. From now on, all articles I will call him Terry Targets.
Okay. I think so.
Right.
I think that's
actually
pretty good. I was proud of that one.
I didn't understand the F1 until they put it beside McLaren, and I'm like, oh, that's right, that's a car.
Yeah, which is pretty good. That is pretty good.
It is pretty good.
So
but anyway, yeah. I remember watching this.
So I don't know necessarily if he's going to keep that up, but I will say, if you watched a little bit of the game the other night, the first half, if it didn't put you to sleep, if you came back in the second half, Case Keenum had 332 yards of garbage time production.
Right.
Terry McLaurin had another solid game, had another clutch game. Now I know Case Keenum did throw 3 picks and 3 picks and 2 touchdowns, but I still think they're going to. You mentioned it before. They have a bad defense. They're still going to get opportunities. McLaurin's going to get opportunities as well.
Right.
So
I mean, if
keep
you
in
remember,
mind.
right.
Keep in mind he's a rookie though.
Right. If you remember a couple years ago when Blake Bortles had Allen Robinson and who was the other guy?
Oh man. Why can't I think of his name? Allen Hurns.
Yeah, but there was a third guy. No, there was 2 studs. There was Robinson and another guy. Anyway, but if you remember that year, Jacksonville, this was before they had the better defense. They sucked, and Bortles had tons and tons, and those guys had tons of wide receiver fantasy points in garbage time. I mean, Bortles would throw, like you said, 3 interceptions a week, but he'd throw 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and earn a clutch game. Now, I'm not saying he probably was only 50 or 60% consistent, but he definitely made Allen Robinson, Hurns, and there was another guy, that were very valuable, in the garbage time thing. And I think that's pretty much what you're looking at. It's just a question of, will somebody else step up on the other side, like a Paul Richardson, when teams start double teaming him? I mean, if he's doing all the dirty work, well. But then again, garbage time's garbage time. So, you gotta figure that out. So, all right. So we've got about 8 minutes left. So let's hit the tight ends real quick and work our way out. So there are only 4 tight ends who have played all 3 games and are perfect 100%. Travis Kelce, no surprise. Zach Ertz, no surprise. Evan Ingram, again, no surprise. He was our guy. Evan Ingram. Sad part was it was Evan Ingram or Jared Cook. I'm glad I picked Ingram in so many leagues and didn't get Cook in only a few, because God, Cook is killing us. But those 3 guys, Evan Ingram is now first. He's first in total points, 3 for 3. Kelsey's 4th. Zach Ertz is only 9th in total points, which is surprising. But the other guy that's there in 3rd in total points is Darren Waller from Oakland. There was a lot of love for him. Basically, him and Mark Andrews were getting a lot of love, in the preseason. It's so hard to take a chance on tight ends. Sadly, I didn't draft either one of them. I think I did pick up one of them off the waivers after week 1. I think it was Waller in the one league. But, obviously these guys are putting up solid numbers. Andrews got hurt, so he didn't perform well last week. But what are your thoughts on Darren Waller and the Oakland the love for him in the Oakland offense?
Well, it's kind of the same thing as the Redskins. I mean, they're going to be behind. They're going to be having to throw without AB. We talked about Tyrell Williams. I think he and Darren Waller have to be the top guys in that offense to catch the ball. So I think he's going to get targets. He's going to get opportunities. I'm fine with him the rest of the way. I mean, he could definitely – I don't obviously think he's going to be 100%, but I think he's going to be one of the top consistent guys up there just because out of necessity for their passing game.
Right. And the good thing was with Daniel Jones in there last week, Evan Ingram stayed just as valuable as he was with not that I'm surprised, because obviously but Golden Tate comes back this week is it this week or is he off one more? He might be off one more week.
I think he's got one more. I think it's 4-game suspension.
Yeah, 4th game. So, Golden Tate will be coming back. Sterling Shepard certainly picked it up with a real quarterback in there as well. So, But good to see Evan Ingram still doing well. At 2 for 3, 67%. Mark Andrews, we already talked about. Greg Olson, Austin Hooper, which is kind of surprising that he's 2 for 3. But he has those stretches. But I do see him getting a few more targets. I think the teams are starting to focus a little bit more on stopping Jones and Ridley. Jones is pretty hard to stop. Ridley, obviously, if you just play zone defense, he doesn't know where to go. Did you see that quote?
No, I didn't. I missed that one.
He actually, to a reporter, literally admitted, he goes, I really struggled last week in zone defense I just couldn't find a place to get open in the Colts offense, in the Colts secondary. Well, guess what everybody else is going to do from now on against Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, that's not too smart.
Yeah, not real smart. So we may see Austin Hooper doing a little bit better. George Kittle's there, 10th, 2 for 3. I don't think they're throwing the ball to him as much. They're kind of spreading it around. And, hey, you know what? San Francisco's winning football games, so probably not going to argue too much with that as well. I'm sure Kittle will have his consistency. He'll be there. Again, I really didn't expect him to come up and have as great as a year as he did last year. I think that was a combination of, backup quarterbacks and, the offense just seemed to work well through him. So, but are there any tight ends other than Jared Cook, who is killing everybody, that you're surprised by? I have to say, I'm surprised by both of the Colts tight ends. Like, I expected one or the other to still have a solid year with Brissett, but they're getting zero love from him. I mean, Jack Doyle's 0 for 3, Ebron's 1 for 3. It's just like they're not even throwing. Now, if T.Y. misses a game this week, this might be the week to get in, Ingram or, one of those guys, or not Ingram. Get in either, Ebron or Doyle this week if they're, because then they'll basically be going out there with Paris Campbell and Paris Campbell and Zach Pascal. Yeah, all those kind of guys. So you might see the tight ends. Yeah, you might see the tight ends maybe having a little bit better game this coming week if T.Y. is missing. Any thoughts on the remaining tight ends and anybody you might see maybe making a leap up or down?
A guy that I've kind of targeted the last couple of weeks, and he bailed me out last week because he scored a touchdown, and that's Demetrius Harris for Cleveland. And I don't think necessarily you're going to see him as a top-level guy. But I think if you're scrambling for somebody, I think he would have been a decent daily pick last week just because he was so cheap. He could have saved you a little bit of cash there. So he did catch the touchdown, and he only ended up getting 2 targets, but the other one happened to be in the red zone as well. So I think he's a guy that you might see if Cleveland and Baker Mayfield can kind of get that right. Another guy that kind of surprises me is O.J. Howard, and I don't think that, with what people were giving up for him as far as draft picks, being 1 for 3, only having 15.8 fantasy points, he's a guy that's definitely ultra disappointing. Now, I didn't draft him a lot of places, have him in a couple dynasties, but luckily I had backup plans I could go with. But I'd say it's probably, as far as disappointing at the position, he's probably the number one guy.
Yeah, definitely. So as folks go forward with this week, certainly keep looking the waiver wire. I mean, the one guy I picked up in a number of leagues was Will Dissly. I mean, I watched the Seattle game, and last 2 games he seems to be a favorite of Russell Wilson. So, I don't know how long that'll last. Also, I picked up Jason Witten in a couple of leagues because, hey, guess what? Dak seems to like throwing to him as well. So, for you Jared Cook owners and Ebron owners, that's definitely something you want to look into. So, all right, we got about 2 minutes left. So, Ron, drop us where you're doing, what you're doing, and how you're doing baseball, wrapping up the baseball year.
So we're finishing up the season, Nasty Cast. I believe we got one more of those. If you get a chance, we did a bonus Patreon episode that we made live for everybody on our YouTube channel. That's Nasty Tracks Pods. It's Nasty Tracks, TRAX Pods. And we did we uncovered a 1920s lost episode of the program, and our guy Van Lee did some nice editing with it, put a little photo kind of video montage with it. So check that out. It's definitely entertaining for sure.
I gotta watch that, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And so we started our off-season minor league team previews. We started with the Reds farm system last week on the Fantrax Dynasty pod, so go check that out. We got those started early, but we're going to go all throughout the offseason previewing those farm systems. So we're wrapping up the baseball season, but we're just kind of getting started in Fantrax Dynasty Baseball. Gotcha.
And, of course, consistently cashing this weekend. See how you guys do. I know you guys, would you do cash 3 out of 4 last week?
3 for 3 on FanDuel, and I am 2 for 3 in DraftKings. So
nice.
Off to a good start.
Killing it. Sweet. So definitely that. And, of course, the prop bet consistency, prop it like it's hot, will be on this weekend. Our poor guy Kobe has to fly solo, which is fine. I got some things I couldn't get out of, so he'll be doing the podcast. We'll be working on the article, of course, together, and those have still been going well. We've been in around the 60-65% for most of those games. We've been winning some decent money on Thrive Fantasy. Hey, don't forget, go to Thrive Fantasy, use BGFS for your code, and guess what? You'll get an extra $10 in your bank account on Thrive, so don't forget to do that as well. So for my man, Ron Rigney, I'm Bob Lung. Thanks for being here. We'll be back again next week.
As a small business owner, you deserve more. More confidence, more connectivity, more of the tools that help your business thrive. And at Cox Business, you can expect more from us. We don't just have sales reps. We have perfect plan identifiers. People who will work with you to make sure your business gets everything it needs and nothing that it doesn't. Your business deserves more, and that's why you can expect more from Cox Business. Call 800-526-8572 to switch today. As a small business owner, you deserve more. More confidence, more connectivity, more of the tools that help your business thrive. And at Cox Business, you can expect more from us. We don't just have sales reps. We have perfect plan identifiers. People who will work with you to make sure your business gets everything it needs and nothing that it doesn't. Your business deserves more, and that's why you can expect more from Cox Business. Call 800-526-8572 to switch today.